In an interview you'll only see on CBS, Attorney General William Barr says that he was surprised when Robert Mueller told him that he would not decide if the president obstructed justice. Barr says Mueller could have made a determination. Chief legal correspondent Jan Crawford traveled with Barr to Alaska, and they sat down for nearly an hour-long interview yesterday. The Attorney General discussed why he cleared President Trump of obstruction after the special counsel declined to do so.
He said that he couldn't exonerate the president. You looked at that evidence, and you did. I mean, what's the fundamental difference between your view and his?
Well, I think Bob said that he was not going to engage in the analysis. He was not going to make a determination one way or the other. We analyzed the law and the facts, and a group of us spent a lot of time doing that and determined that both as a matter of law, many of the instances would not amount to obstruction.
As a matter of law? As
a matter of law. In other words, we didn't agree with the legal analysis. A lot of the legal analysis in the report, it did not reflect the views of the department. It was the views of a particular lawyer or lawyers. So we applied what we thought was the right law.
That decision, offered up in a 4-page summary, opened the Attorney General to criticism.
The response was that you were too soft on the president, that actually the special counsel was a little sharper on obstruction.
I was just trying to state the bottom line, and the bottom line was that Bob Mueller identified some episodes. He did not reach a conclusion. He provided both sides of the issue, and his conclusion was he wasn't exonerating the president, but he wasn't finding a crime either.
I do not believe it is appropriate for me to speak further about the investigation.
While Barr testified before Congress about the special counsel's report, Mueller wants the report to speak for itself and signaled he does not want to testify.
Do you think he should?
It's up to Bob, but I think the line he's drawing, which is that he's going to stick to what he said in the report, is the proper line for any department official.
We asked Barr about Mueller's final caution.
That there were multiple, systematic efforts to interfere in our election.
How's the Justice Department working now to ensure this doesn't happen again in 2020?
Yes, well, we do have I think a increasingly robust program that is focusing on foreign influence in our election process. I talked recently to the director of the FBI about putting together a special high-level group to make sure we're totally prepared for the upcoming elections.
Do you think enough was done in 2016?
Probably not.
The president has repeatedly accused former intelligence officials of dropping the ball by fixating too much on his campaign.
They were spying. They were spying on our campaign.
You've testified that you believe spying occurred.
Yes.
Into the Trump campaign.
Yes.
You've gotten some criticism for using that word.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's become a dirty word somehow. It has never been for me. I think there's nothing wrong with spying. The question is always whether it's authorized by law.
Some former intelligence chiefs have said the president has made that word somewhat pejorative, that they're spying, this is a witch hunt, this is a hoax. And so your use of that word makes it seem that you're being a loyalist.
It's part of the craziness of the modern day that if a president uses a word, then all of a sudden it becomes off bounds. It's a perfectly good English word. I'll continue to use it.
What have you seen? What evidence? What makes you think I need to take a look at this?
Like many other people who are familiar with intelligence activities, I had a lot of questions about what was going on, and I assumed I'd get answers when I went in, and I have not gotten answers that are at all satisfactory, and in fact have probably more questions, and that some of the facts that I've learned don't hang together with the official explanations of what happened.
What do you mean by that?
That's all I really will say. Things are just not jiving.
Well, that is interesting. Jan Crawford joins us now from Anchorage, Alaska. So, Jan, Attorney General Barr said that the Justice Department lawyers disagreed with the legal analysis of the special counsel's team on obstruction of justice. But why did the AG believe that the Justice Department needed to come to a conclusion at all, considering there wasn't not going to be any sort of indictment of the president? So why make a judgment?
Well, I mean, he said that that is the role of the Justice Department, and he also said that he expected the special counsel to make that recommendation, and he was surprised when they met with Mueller, and he said that he would not be making a decision on whether or not the president committed the crime of obstruction of justice. He said, you know, the Justice Department has his process, Congress has its processes, and we have a responsibility to look at the law and analyze the law. We don't have to indict the president. In fact, we can't indict the president while he's in office. But while memories are fresh, while witnesses are available, you look at the evidence, and then you make that call on whether or not you believe there is a potential of indictment once he leaves office. Now, that's separate from Congress, and he didn't suggest that Congress shouldn't do its processes, but he thought that was an important role for the Justice Department, and he disagrees with the special counsel that he, you know, could not have made that call himself.
He's taken a lot of criticism about that 4-page memo, that he had written up, sort of summarizing the Mueller report. And now we know that, you know, even Mueller's team was not very happy with the way the report was characterized. What stood out to you about his response to that?
Well, I learned a lot I didn't know. I mean, this is some news that he talked about when that wasn't the plan. He didn't plan to write that summary. He expected to be able to release almost the full report almost right away, the report that eventually he did release, because he had asked over a period of weeks repeatedly for the special counsel's office to identify that sensitive, highly confidential grand jury material that by law cannot be released to the public or to Congress. And over the period of weeks, while they were waiting for the report, the special counsel's office indicated they were identifying that so that then, you know, the Attorney General could get the report, quickly make whatever else redactions that he needed to make for ongoing prosecutions, and then turn it around and release it to the public. When they got the report, none of that material had been identified. And so that then began a long process of trying to figure out what they could release to the public. But he said you couldn't wait 4 weeks. People were camping out. I mean, there were people on television speculating about all kinds of things. He had to turn something around quickly. And it wasn't, you know, the full report. He was just trying to get into the nooks and crannies of what the report said, knowing this other thing would be released later. But it wasn't the original plan. He thought that they were going to be able to release a more complete thing almost immediately.
He's been taking a lot of fire, and certainly there have been Democrats that have accused him of operating as the AG for the president and not for the people. Did you get a chance to ask him about that?
You know, that came up on a number of different conversation topics, whether we were talking about obstruction, the special counsel, the Russia investigation, his investigation into the Russia investigation. And what became very clear during our almost hour-long conversation is that Bill Barr does not care about criticism. He is going to do what he thinks is right for the rule of law and right under the rule of law and for the good of the institutions, and he is not going to be swayed by it. You know, he said he's at the end of his career. He thought he would take this job because he knew he was going to be able to call it like he sees it, and it's not going to bother him.
And so he sees a problem with the initial seeds of this investigation because he's now been tasked with investigating the investigation. He sees something there? He does.
He does. He would not get into the specifics of what it was. And I mean, if you can imagine, I was like, well, tell us something. I mean, what? Like, what is it? And he said, I'm not going to go there. But yes, there is stuff that in the run-up to the election and even after the election that he has questions about. The timelines don't add up, whether procedures, rules that are typical for these kind of counterintelligence investigations were followed. He says of course there was spying because we know there was a counterintelligence operation done. The question is, were there grounds for that? What was the reason for that? And that's what he wants to take a look at. That's why he has started this new investigation, a review, as he calls it, of the Russia